The states that define the Deep South can be broad at times. Like most regions in the United States, there is no clear boundary, but Mississippi is about as southern as it gets. I've heard the state receive a ton of hate in my life, and because of this, it reminds me a lot of my home state of West Virginia. Although there is usually some truth to stereotypes, it tends to be dramatized, and when you actually explore the area, you end up realizing that there is so much more good than what is perceived. Mississippi is rich in history, nice people, tasty food, and due to the state being one of the rainiest and warmest in the country, it is home to some underrated nature. I drove through the state once before, but in September of 2024, I made my first ever true visit down to explore four random counties of Franklin, Pike, Scott, and Warren in southern Mississippi. My trip begins along the southwest Mississippi-Louisiana border, with the eighth smallest county in the state covering an area of around 409 square miles of land, Pike County. What Pike lacks in size is made up a little bit in population, with just under 40,000 people calling the county home, which is the 19th highest in the state. Even with this population, the county is mostly rural, with only two notable communities to speak of. Macomb, which is the largest city in the county with around 13,000 people, and to the south you have the county seat of Magnolia with only 2,000 people. I didn't spend any time in Magnolia, but I walked through the tiny downtown of Macomb and had breakfast at the Morning Rail, along with a later snack at PJ's Coffee. A short drive from these two towns is my first state park in Mississippi and my second in the United States, Percy E. Quinn State Park. This is where I slept at throughout the trip in one of their cabins that overlooks Lake Tangipahoa. This state park covers just under 500 acres and is home to the lake, along with surrounding forests that a ton of plants and animals call home. The lake is the main attraction, but there's also the nature trail that takes you through some of these woods, but be prepared because the trail was overgrown in some spots. The lifeline of this county is Interstate 55, or the smaller U.S. Highway 51, which cuts north-south through the county. Macomb is almost the halfway point between the state capital of Jackson and the city of New Orleans by the way of both of these roads. U.S. Highway 98 also starts in Macomb and heads east towards Columbia. From here, I visited National Forests 2 and 3 for me in the United States, with Homochito in Franklin County and Bienville up in Scott County. Homochito National Forest covers most of Franklin County, which is reflected in the population, as it's the seventh least populated county in the state with just under 8,000 people calling Franklin home. This leaves a lot of room for people in the county, with 563 square miles of land area, which is the 42nd largest out of 82 counties in the state. With so little population, there isn't any main U.S. interstates going into the county, but you do have U.S. Highway 84 and 98, both moving east-west through Franklin. Since there is a lack of urban life and abundance of protected areas, the nature is really awesome here, and you can get a good feel at it at one of my favorite spots in the county, Clear Springs Lake. Like Homochito with Franklin County, Bienville National Forest covers the majority of Scott County, although Bienville is the smaller protected area. The importance of a major interstate is reflected well with Scott and Franklin counties, as Interstate 20 cuts right through the county and provides a quick access to the largest city in the state of Jackson, being only 45 minutes away. Scott County is slightly bigger than Franklin, but it has nearly 20,000 more people, which is the 32nd highest in the state. U.S. Highway 80 also is within the county, riding parallel with I-20 to the south. I went over to Roosevelt State Park, which would be my second in the state, and kayaked on Shadow Lake, which is protected by the park. It was during the week, so the park was super quiet, but I can definitely see it getting filled up here on the weekends as the lake is gorgeous. After a couple hours on the lake, I went over to the county seat and largest town of the county forest and ate at this cool little diner called Foothills Diner. For the last county of this trip, you simply have to drive across I-20 or U.S. Highway 80 from Forest for an hour and a half until you make it to the highlight of this trip for me, which is Warren County. Sitting on the Mississippi and Yazoo rivers, the county is similar in size to the others from this trip, but it also has an additional 30 square miles of water area, which is the 8th highest in the state. Over 42,000 people call Warren County home, which is the highest on this trip and the 17th highest in the state. Being a part of the Mississippi Delta, the cotton culture was huge here, and the county was once home to major plantations. Because of this, the city of Vicksburg, which is the county seat and largest city in Warren, was once an extremely important river port. The heart of everything in this county is Vicksburg, which sits on a high bluff overlooking the Mississippi and Yazoo rivers. It was under Confederate control during the Civil War, and it was actually the last Confederate stronghold on the Mississippi River which was basically the lifeline for the Confederacy during the war. Due to these circumstances, it was inevitable that a battle would take place here, and that's exactly what happened. Called the Siege of Vicksburg, it ended with a Union takeover of the city, which marked a serious turning point in the American Civil War to the Union's favor. This battle was one of the most famous battles of the Civil War, and the battleground is actually a national park named Vicksburg National Military Park. This is my first national park I've shared on this series, with 8 national military parks left to go and a whole bunch of national parks left to go. This park is notorious for being one of the best battlefield parks in the world and is easily navigable. You are able to drive to all the memorials and the statues in the park, with the Illinois Memorial being one of the best designed and my personal favorite. You can see throughout the drive from several spots as the memorial overlooks this huge field. Vicksburg was definitely the most beautiful spot of this trip, not only with the proximity to the Mississippi and Yazoo rivers, but with the man-made structures. The streets are dotted with historic antebellum homes and churches. One home that I like in particular is the Featherston's Magruder House, which was built in the 19th century and was around when the Civil War happened. Another beautiful building that survived the Civil War and is my personal favorite in the city is the Old County Courthouse that was built in the 19th century. It overlooks the rest of the city fairly well as it sits on a hill and is now an active museum that you can go inside. When I say the architecture is amazing, I don't only mean the buildings. The Vicksburg Bridge that goes over the Mississippi River connecting Louisiana and Mississippi by the way of Interstate 20 is absolutely beautiful and a great place to catch sunset. This bridge runs parallel with the old Vicksburg Bridge, which was once the main bridge across, but now is just a railroad bridge. This was probably my favorite spot in the entire city to settle in for the last hour of sunlight. One thing that all these counties have in common is their troubled past. All 4 counties were developed for agriculture, specifically cotton, and was home to several plantations that forced African Americans to be slaves. Even after the conclusion of the Civil War, segregation was still very much alive for a long time, with a conflict in 1898 within Scott County that led to fatalities. Won't get too deep into this because there is plenty of information out there for it, but the state is in total opposite direction of what it was, and I'm so happy that I got to experience the amazing Southern hospitality. This series is going to continue and take a stark contrast of landscapes as we head out west to the beautiful state of Arizona.